Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's discussion as Sally Falkow talks with Gary Vaynerchuk on the role of micro-content in storytelling. Gary is CEO of VaynerMedia, a digital agency that has grown from 40 to 400 staff in the last 2 years. He's also an angel investor and has been advising Fortune 500 companies and some of the most successful tech startups since social media's early days. Today's conversation is presented by compro.biz and brought to you by Onstream Media. To submit a question or comment at any time during the webcast, please click on the Ask a Question button on the bottom of your screen. Simply type your message into the box and click on the Submit button. All questions will be reviewed at the end of the event. You can also join the conversation on Twitter using hashtag AskGaryV. That is AskGaryVEE. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to today's host, Sally Falkow. Sally, you may begin.
Thank you, Gabriel. Good morning, everybody, and I want to welcome Gary Vaynerchuk. Hi, Gary. Thank you so much. We'd really appreciate you giving us this time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right, so we don't have much time. Let's jump right into it. And we just want to have a really quick intro about your book, Jab, 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 Right Hook. And can you just give us a little bit about what's in the book? Gary, are you there? Gabriel? I've lost Gary. Hello?
Hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, great. What I did in Jab, 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 Right Hook was try to attack the situation at hand that I think most people are not understanding, which is that all social networks are not created equal. And want to accomplish whether that's the sell of shoes or...
You're fading in and out, Gary.
I haven't moved since can you hear me?
Better. That's better, yeah.
I'm in the same spot. I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening. Basically, whatever your KPI is, whatever you're trying to accomplish, the end of the day, if you don't...
Hi, Gary. Could you just move your phone around a little because you keep disappearing?
Is that right? I haven't moved since all our sound checks, so...
I don't know what's going on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. So you were saying that people don't understand that all the platforms are different?
Gary's line has been reconnected.
Oh, yeah, okay. So are we better now, Gabriel?
We're better now, yes.
Okay. Well, let's reboot. So tell me
let's reboot.
Don't understand about the different platforms.
I think most people are not practitioners in social media. They just read headlines. And so they think Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat are just all the same thing. They're quote-unquote social networks. They try to bucket them in one kind of general area. And I think that those four platforms are as different as... the consumer when they're consuming the content is different. And so what I try to do is really create a book. And really, I've built an agency, VaynerMedia, around the practical skill sets it takes to strategize and then create creative to work in those channels.
Okay, great. So give us an idea of, you talk about micro-content. So what exactly is it? What is micro-content? What makes it micro, and what do we do with it?
Fan of it. And what micro-content really is it is the creative that lives in these platforms. I think for a lot of people listening that have done, work for big brands or have worked at agencies that have done work for big brands, or even the small businesses and the entrepreneurs in here, there's a very big difference between spending $250,000 to make a video that becomes... So first, I just want to apologize to everybody for the issues. I'm trying my best here. Did you want me to re-answer that question?
Yes, please, Gary.
So the micro part is the costs and the lifespan. Obviously, anybody listening recognizes that when you make a television commercial or a print ad, you're spending tens, hundreds, if not millions of dollars to produce that piece of content, and then you're spending those kind of dollars to distribute that. What happens at social is that you could spend hundreds of dollars and spend hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, to produce the content. And so that's the micro nature, not only the cost, but kind of the distribution and the lifespan. The concern I have when people hear micro is its impact. I believe that the impact is very macro, but the fact of the matter, it's more nimble, it's quicker, it's faster, it's more relevant in a 2015 world, and it's more native to the speed of the streams that we play in on Facebook and Twitter. And when I say streams, just to ground that for everybody on the call, you know, everybody knows the way they consume Facebook and Twitter on their phones. It's a conscious stream that you're using your finger to scroll through. That's a very different consumption mechanism than sitting on your butt watching a television show. So the speed in which our world now works requires a different level of quality and quantity of content, and micro content is kind of how I've defined it.
That makes total sense to me. So in your book, you say there's no sale without the story and there's no knockout without the setup. Can you just explain that a little bit?
So the thing that's been required by these big blunt objects like television and radio and print and billboards, and I want to remind everybody on the call, I spent the first 15 years of my career spending my money and energy storytelling on those platforms. So I have enormous amounts of respect and enormous amounts of romance and historical feelings towards those platforms. However, I always say the quickest way to go out of business is to be romantic about how you make your money. So I'm not romantic about all those years I've spent storytelling in those platforms. I'm recognizing that these new platforms have been established. And so at the end of the day, what these platforms allow us to do, the new platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat, is they allow us to put out content that isn't just required on the sale. If you think about it, we only had one at-bat, two at-bats when we were spending millions on television and radio and print. And what we have now, when you're spending thousands of dollars instead of millions of dollars in producing content, is you have the ability to put out content that is valuable to the user, what I would call a jab. Kind of in the funny way, ironically, in the way that commercials for Super Bowl used to be. You know, they were meant to be funny and impactful. Those were jabs. They were there just to bring value to the audience, make them laugh, make them feel something. I think we can do a lot more of that now. And then, unlike television, where unless you're talking about, you know, kind of infomercials where they really went in for the sale, what social does is, at a very low cost, allows you to say, buy this now. Sign up for this webinar now, like I did a couple of days ago for this webinar on Twitter. All my content throughout the month allowed me to throw that right hook and not turn people off with that direct response mentality. So it's combining classic branding with direct response in one medium, which has been unusual historically. You have not seen a lot of brands that both do television commercials and then infomercials. You've not seen a lot of people do just direct response internet marketing and then go out and do branding campaigns in print. So what social has done is allowed, through its cost and its speed and its nimbleness, to create a scenario where you can do both.
Okay, great. I have a question here from somebody in our audience.
Okay.
Is it true that micro content should not have a lot of text on it?
No, I don't think that's true. I do think that, you know, one of the things everybody listening here should think about after they hang up here is hang up and then go to your Twitter and Facebook feed and scroll and see what catches your eye. I think none of us would be confused that imagery is going to over-index compared to text. So, but I think there's a time and a place. I mean, here's an interesting thing. I have two all-time greatest pieces of content shared on my Facebook.com/Gary page. One was very recently. It was a Screw You Monday video where I kind of ranted about people complaining about Monday, and that kind of pissed me off. So I made a video, and that went viral. The other is a long written manifesto about, you know, me caring about the last 10 years of your life versus the next 10 years. And that was an entire picture that was, you know, 6 sentences long, extremely unattractive visually, but the copy was so profound to the audience that it became viral. So I would say that good content is good content, whether it's a picture, a video, written word, animated GIF, whatever it may be. But there is no question, looking at big data, that images do over-index over the written words.
Okay, great. So in terms of this jab before the right hook and what you called the setup, is that what the micro content is? Are we doing jabs?
I think that's the strategy, and the micro content is the pictures, the videos, and the written word. Let me give you an example. For Wine Library, my wine shop, I would put out a video today reviewing a wine. Tomorrow I would put out a written article, 10 best wines to drink under $10, right? The next day I may start a series called Did You Know? Did you know that all white Burgundy is 100% Chardonnay? So the last 3 days, as you can tell, I've acted like a media company. I've provided value. But then the fourth day from now, I would say, special offer, a $40 wine for $20. My thesis and what I've seen come through over the last 2 or 3 years is that by putting out that good content for 3 days as a wine shop, I've set myself up to have more equity and more of a ground to stand on to ask for the sale on that fourth day. And I think what you would agree with me, Sally, and a lot of people on the call would agree with me, is if you're following a wine shop on social networks, those last 4 days, usually it's buy this wine, deal on this wine, free shipping. It's all selling. It's all right hooks. And I've seen better conversion if it's been jabbing along the way.
That makes sense. Okay. So you talk a lot about when you're creating micro content, it has to be done in the native language of a platform. So
Yes.
What is that native language, and how do we figure out which is which?
So this is where being an expert, a practitioner, putting in the work, it all matters. So first, the native language is only captured if you're listening, not talking. So much like if I went to Africa right now or India, before I talk, I would be listening and realize, okay, this is a different language. I've got to learn this language before I can talk. That is not how most advertising agencies and how most brands think about the world, and that's why they get into trouble. Now, let me explain. When you look at, and this is visual more so than listening, right? It's actually visual collection. You've got to go to Pinterest, and you've got to see how the people that are successful on Pinterest are acting. Same thing on Twitter, same thing on Facebook. You've got to watch the behavior. What you'll notice on Pinterest is infographics, beautiful imagery, quote cards, those kind of things over-index on Pinterest. And so the best way to win is to put out content that speaks to that language as a brand. You've got to talk native in that language. You've also got to do something very important. You've got to factor in the psychology of the person while they're consuming. Here's what I mean by that. When a 42-year-old woman is spending an hour on Pinterest, her mindset is the aspiration to buy or to buy. There's enormous amounts of purchase behavior and intent in Pinterest because the pin boards act in that manner. People build collections with the intent of wanting to buy those things or actually buying those things. When that same exact woman, let's call her Sally Arkansas, when she's in Facebook, she's more keeping up with her world, the news that she's interested in and the people that she's interested in, pictures of her friends' children. Now imagine that you're a shoe company. You obviously have far more latitude to throw right hooks in Pinterest and probably want to have more of a strategy of throwing jabs on Facebook with the intent to set up a right hook, a call to action, and ask to purchase in Facebook. On Twitter, she may be following celebrities, so you may want to think about pop culture references. So as you can tell, where you are, what room you're in, has a lot to do with the content that you want to put out. And by testing and learning and trying different things, people on this call will get further along the funnel of actually converting what is their objective on those platforms.
Great, thank you. So we have another question here from Marshall Fowler. So in an effort to maintain the native content, do you only post messages and pictures to one platform and not forward them across and cross-post? So you wouldn't put the same thing on Twitter and Facebook, is that correct?
I would say this. The answer is, in theory, yes. However, a slight tweak in the picture, changing the copy that you support the picture with, allows you to scale these images. So I would say I'm scared to say yes you can cross-pollinate, because what most people do is they cash it in and they go lazy and they post the same thing across all 5 platforms and they call it a day. And I'm very scared to do that and allow any permission of that behavior because it won't work as well. However, if you just take a picture of a shoe and you use different hashtags on Instagram than you do on Twitter, or you write longer copy on Facebook because you're allowed to there, or you change the filter on Instagram, or you add another picture and you do something, a little bit of DJing, what I call DJing for Pinterest, or you turn it into an animated GIF that the shoe moves on Tumblr. So I would say you could use the same raw assets and then change 20% of it in very quick 15, 10, 7-minute maneuvers that would then give you dramatically more upside than to say, take one picture, same words, same copy supporting it, and then posting it across all platforms.
Awesome. And you just set me up perfectly for my next question. That was absolutely wonderful. What is DJing content?
Perfect. So, guys, I kind of just, announced it, but it goes even bigger than that. A lot of times for our clients, or whether big or small, we take the images that they have on their website, or we actually take the 1-minute video they made for their television commercial, and we chop up 3 seconds of it and then overlay it with some different music and put a hashtag over it, and maybe even create a 1-second add-on to the 6 seconds and make a new 7-second video made for Facebook. It's mashing up. It's really taken from the music industry. I think everybody here is not confused what happens. DJs take original songs and they mix it with other songs. They add different beats. They talk over it. And that's what we do with content. We take original pieces of content, we DJ it, and we make it native for the platform so that it over-indexes to the psychology of the audience on hand.
Perfect.
Because I'm going to take a second here, and I want everybody to understand, because I know there's a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs. The people following you on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, A, are different. B, the common 30%, 60% that follow you on all 3, they want different stuff from you when they're on these platforms because their psychology is different when they're on these platforms. That's why DJing matters.
That's great. Thank you, Gary. So you said the skill set it takes to be a successful entrepreneur or marketer or a relevant celebrity is a different skill set than you needed 10 years ago. So what is it? A lot of the people on the call are PR people, marketing people, and small businesses. So what is the skill set that we need to succeed today?
Speed, lack of romance, and understanding that there is no editor in between you and the audience, which then lends itself to dramatic levels of charisma, authenticity, empathy. The interesting thing is, I don't think there's been a more noble time in the history of marketing to be successful. What I mean by that is the most attractive human characteristics are over-indexing, meaning a lot of people are playing the humor card, or irrelevant, or, kind of irreverent, not irrelevant, irreverent humor, cynicism, snarkiness, zingery. They're using these things on Twitter, which catches people's attention, but there's a lot of other things that work on Twitter that a lot of people aren't using that are the foundation of my world, which is empathy, charisma, sharpness, caring, just self-awareness. I think at the end of the day, what people don't realize is the internet has stripped away the curtain. We're all been exposed like the Wizard of Oz now, and now you're left with who you are and what you are. There's a level of meritocracy that social networking has created because the only thing in between you and the audience now is a tool that has no filter, and that's very different than an editor-in-chief, than a publisher, than all the other things that have allowed people to go direct to consumer in the past. And that is something that people are having a hard time quantifying, and they're struggling with. And then there's also the part of the world, the sector that understands this. I find PR professionals struggling with this quite a bit because they were always in the B2B business, right? At the end of the day, you made your hay by having relationships with publishers and writers, and now going direct to consumer, you've got to have a totally different voice. It's less of a PR voice. It's more of a having a drink over lunch voice, and that is everything.
Exactly so. So we have another question here. Are there different social networks that you find are better suited for certain micro-content? In other words, is LinkedIn better for certain things than Twitter?
Yes, absolutely. So I would say Instagram is obviously photography at its finest. I think of it as Vogue and Sports Illustrated, it's high level of photography. I find, obviously animated GIFs for the younger set who know who that is and the older set that's paying attention. Those are going to work more on Tumblr. I think video, especially short form, call it less than a minute, is exploding right now on Facebook, and you should be paying attention to that. I think quote cards, a picture with an inspirational quote or a factual quote is doing extremely well on all platforms, all four of them. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. I think audio files have potential on Tumblr, where it doesn't have that in most other places. I think long-form, call it 500-word essays, really work on Facebook and LinkedIn. I think humorous one-liners clearly massively over-index on Twitter. So no question, and that goes back to being native and finding the slang of each platform. Not only do I find that's the case, that's the point.
Great. So did I lose Gary again?
No, I'm here.
Oh, you have. Good.
I went for emphatic silence. My last, because it really is the point, right? Like the point is, here's a good example. Nobody here listening would go on CNN and then Fox News and try to sell that audience something and say the same things, right? Because you know that they're different people. Exactly. That's the same point, right? The people are different on these platforms. Even if they're the same person, they're different in the way that I would act differently in a boardroom, or here's a good example. I'm acting very differently on this phone call than I did with my brother this weekend over in Las Vegas during his bachelor party, right? I'm in a different setting. We're having fun. We're letting loose there. Here I'm being professional, and I'm stressing that the first 8 minutes we're not connecting well, and, I'm trying to bring value to the audience. Like this last weekend, the audience was my brother and his friends, and I was trying to make sure they were having a good time as the host of the bachelor party. So I think if you're not respecting the room and the settings you're in, well, then your message is never going to hit home. And that's the point. These social networks are different. You have to understand who's on them. You have to understand what works there. And that's why Jab, 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 Right Hook was made like a textbook. I made 150 case studies because I didn't think there was any other way to articulate it than to show people.
Right. Very good. So just before I go into this next question, I wanted to ask you something. Every year, the Pressfeed newsroom does a study of what brands in the Fortune 100 and the Fortune 500 and the Inc. 500 are doing. And what we saw this year is that about twice as many companies are using Pinterest than Instagram. Very few of them actually are using Instagram. Do you think that that's a mistake?
And was that a study done of what happened in 2014?
Yeah, from the middle of 2014 to now.
To now, when did you stop? Because I'd find that
a month ago.
To me.
A month ago.
Yeah, so I would say that makes sense to me based on what I know as well, but that I promise you, when you do that same exact study, you will be blown away by the wave of people going into Instagram. I would say that Instagram is the number one social network right now when it comes to the one thing I care most about, which is something that I call the attention graph. Where are people actually consuming the content? Where it's not zipping through their feed and they had no idea who did it, where they're actually taking a second saying, oh, this is Nike. Oh, this is, Budweiser. I get it. I hear what they're saying. I'm paying attention to it. And so my intuition, so to answer your question firmly, the answer is yes, I think that's a mistake. But by watching, the 25 Fortune 100 companies that I work with behavior over the last 100 days towards Instagram and just watching the overall market, I have a funny feeling that you'll see very, very different results a year from today.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice specific to higher education where the sale is not a traditional product but more of an experience?
And is the KPI or the objective to literally get them to, like, buy the education, to, like, literally go to that university or go to that MBA program?
Yeah.
I would say I'm going to give them advice that I would give everybody on this call, which is that every business in the world today is now a media company. And what I mean by that is when everybody on this call starts acting more like a publisher and a media property and less like an advertiser, they will get bigger results. So if I was a university, I would start putting out dramatic levels of content from the professors, from, I would literally create a small Navy SEALs-like unit of 7 to 10 individuals whose job it was to put out a white paper on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And I would use these channels to distribute that content and use these bigger pieces of content, these 1-hour lectures, these 17-page white papers, as the gateway drug to getting people into the door. And so my recommendation is to use the enormous brain power of the women and men within these organizations to put out enormously valuable long-form content, then DJ that long-form content into micro pieces of content to bring awareness to the long-form content, to then use the long-form content to use as a gateway drug to the final call to action, which is to become interested in the programs that they're selling.
Great. I have another question. Video is continuing its growth in usage and popularity. Do you see video going to trump all content in the future?
Not only in the future, I think in the present and in the prior. Video is absolutely number one. I mean, look, we spend more money. This is historic. We spend more money and time watching television and going to movies than we do reading books or flipping through photography books, right? I mean, it's just a video, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 1,000,000. And so this has just been established human behavior that I think continues in these channels.
Sounds perfect to me. I have a really good question from somebody here who's in Germany, and he's asking, what about cultural differences between countries? How do we use that to play into this micro content?
Perfect question. It's exactly right. For example, Twitter never took off in Germany, so why would someone spend as much time? Not only that, the cadence and the native tongue in each platform is a little bit different. As we can imagine, people are a little more hesitant to share in the Middle East or in communist countries. So cultural differences and different countries absolutely factor into the native tongue that we refer to, and then it comes down to the strategist or the lead kind of architect in all these platforms to create the strategy around these differences. And so they absolutely have to be factored in 100%.
Right. So what do you see as the biggest mistakes brands are currently making?
I think they're just not taking this place seriously, right? That when they think digital, they're buying pre-roll video, they're buying banner ads, and that's their distribution, and then they're paying for creative to execute in these two areas, again, banner ads and video pre-roll. And I think that they're taking very historic points of view on the storytelling within digital, and that social networks are a distant second in strategy and money allocations to the pre-mentioned pre-roll video and banner ad marketing, and that's what they think digital is. And I would say that 90% of the monies that brands are spending are on this banner pre-roll video. And to me, it should be 70% social and 30% traditional digital. And that's a big difference between what they're doing and what my point of view is. And, I'd like to think I'm right. And so that's the biggest mistake from one man's humble point of view that's going on in the market right now.
All right. How about direct mail? Is it dead?
I don't think anything's ever truly dead. I think direct mail and FSIs and radio and billboards and all these things are still alive. I think instead of dead, I would like to classify them as overpriced. So, the results you get from direct mail today compared to 20 years ago are enormously down across all the studies that I've looked upon, including my own actions, that wine library. And so I think that there's alternatives. I think Facebook dark posts, where you can reach who you want to reach in their stream, is a better alternative financially than direct mail doing the same exact action. And so I wouldn't say it's dead. I'd say it's overpriced.
Right. Can you use these same rules of micro-content to promote your own personal brand?
100%. I mean, I can go into it, but the answer is yes. I mean, that's what I did. That's where I learned it first. Then I started applying it to my wine business. Then I started applying it to my Fortune 500 companies. So for me, the process started with my personal brand, then scaled to a local, national, e-commerce, bricks and mortar wine shop, and then scaled to the likes of General Electric and Toyota and Pepsi and Unilever.
Right. Good. So what are the hot trends for 2015? What should we be paying attention to that you maybe haven't said, or just distill it down into like the 5 things we really should be doing?
Video on Facebook is number 1. It's way bigger than people think. I think it's a real alternative to YouTube. People should go all in. 2 is all in on Instagram. You have to go all in. People are paying attention there. We're living through the golden age of organic reach on Instagram. Everybody who follows you will see it. Everybody who follows you will actually consume it. So that's number 2. Number 3 is Snapchat. If you're selling to 15 to 30-year-olds and you're not on Snapchat, you're missing an enormous early land grab opportunity. I highly recommend it. 4 is live video. The emergence of Meerkat and Periscope, which was just bought by Twitter and will be rolling out shortly. There's something there. I don't think the ROI is going to be as high in the early times, but there's clearly something there. I highly recommend it. I want people to go all in on it. And number 5 is what I just ranted about, which is auditing what you do in digital. You think you're doing the right thing with websites and apps and banner ads and email marketing and programmatic buying and pre-roll video, but the truth is there's better alternatives in social, better ROI alternatives in social, and you need to shift your dollars and energy and strategy towards that way.
Gary, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you being here with us today and taking the time when you're on vacation. That was awesome. I know we had a little bit of a false start there, but it came to be perfect, and we really appreciate all your insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and for everybody listening, I know we were down 21-0 in the first quarter, but I agree with you. I think we finished off in 130, so I feel good.
Excellent. Well, it will be recorded, and then, people can come back and listen to it again. And if there are any other questions, we'll have them all in the system. So maybe I can feed them to you for further Ask Gary V's.
I will do that. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This does conclude today's webcast. We thank you for your participation. You may close your player windows at this time, and have a great day.